Dr. Simon Chau, welcome to Breakfast with Bobsy.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm not sure where to begin with you, Simon, because you are the grandfather of the green movement in Hong Kong. You've been around doing inspirational things for decades. You are the co-founder of GreenPower back in 1988. You are the founder of Produce Green in 1989, which was possibly Hong Kong's first organic farm. You've inspired countless generations of farmers. Where to begin? You've published over 200 publications, books and papers. You're a doctor in translation. You've started a whole movement of raw food in Hong Kong. You've been a raw foodist yourself since 2011. You have Club O. You've done so many things, and you've been doing it for so long, consistently. And of course, you're an icon in Hong Kong. You know, you're one of Hong Kong's treasures, and it's a pleasure to be having you for breakfast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Bobsy. Well, yes, I'm a grandfather of 2 kids.
And you're a grandfather of 2 kids.
And I'm turning 70 in a few months' time.
70?
Yes. Well.
Wow.
That's how I managed to publish that many books.
Wow. You are turning 70. You look like you're turning not even 60.
Well, if my son is here, you might think he's my elder brother.
Amazing.
Well, yes. When I was doing my secondary school days, I thought one day I would like to win a Nobel Prize in literature. I wanted to be a writer, and then I wanted to be a Catholic priest. Only to realize that if I really become one, I'll be kicked out of the church in 6 days. Otherwise, I would become the first Chinese Pope in Rome.
Quite ambitious.
Well, what happened later was I took up translating. I took up translating because I realized that I won't become a Shakespeare. I can do something secondhand, and that is using my talents to be a bridge between cultures. And so I started translating books. I became a researcher, lecturer in the university. And I think my turning point was when I was 30 years old. I decided to do a doctorate in Britain, and 5 years in Europe.
At the University of Edinburgh?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
That's when you were 30?
Yes. What happened was my 5 years in Europe opened my eyes, and that was the beginning of the green movement there. You know, anti-nuclear marches.
What year was this?
1981.
1981.
When my daughter was born.
So you were in the UK,
yes.
in Edinburgh at the time, in 1981, and you were still taking your doctorate. You were still studying for your doctorate.
At the same time, I learned about things like organic farming, homeschooling, vegetarianism, anti-nuclear movements, and whatnot, and recycling. And
so you kind of got inspired about that when you were in Edinburgh.
Yes.
Was there a particular person or movement or book that really inspired you?
Not in those days, but on graduating, that is 1970, I came across a book by Rachel Carson, The Silent Spring. You know, and
classic.
that totally shocked me. Do you know the planet is coming to an end? And it was the first time I heard this kind of alarming, statements. And at that time, nobody in Hong Kong was thinking along that line.
No.
And we thought it's very okay.
Yeah.
The air was okay, the water was okay, the food is no problem.
Even today, people think the air is okay, the food is okay, there's no problem.
Until I spent my time in Europe and saw what the activists are doing there. And when I returned in 1984 with my doctorate and 2 kids, and I realized that it's our mission to tell Hong Kong and China, my mother country, that all is not okay. You know, if there's a future, it must be green. And the only way to keep Hong Kong survivable is to keep China clean. If China is dirty, we are hopeless. So I think, well, in those days, China was quite closed.
Yes.
They have not much access to the outside world. They can't read the Newsweek. They don't have the CNN. And so it's our mission as translators to transmit those things.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what happened was 35 years ago, one day I was sitting in my garden in Cambridge, only to realize that, well, yes, I am using the 2 most used languages in the world. 22% of the world population speaks Chinese as their first language. And then something like 40% of all of us speak English. So I'm transpiring between the 2 languages.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
You had that realization in Cambridge.
Yes, it dawned on me, you know, that day in the garden. I still remember. So that is why I try translating. And my philosophy of translating is unlike everybody else. I don't encourage people to translate a book. Books are not to be translated. Instead, a good translator should read 10 of them and come up with another book in their own language for their people. So this book should be like this in Hong Kong, and there should be another version in Shanghai.
Right.
For one thing, people in Hong Kong won't read a book like with 300 pages, you see. And so most of my books are translations, but they are not exactly translating in the normal sense.
Right.
I lived, for example, vegetarianism. You don't translate a book about, you know, a meatless lifestyle. You try it yourself and write your own.
So it's almost like you are reinterpreting the book as a new author onto yourself.
Exactly.
Does that require getting permission from the original author, or is it almost like writing a new book?
That's tricky. Well, you bring this up.
Yes.
Now, if you ask an author, can I do this? And the answer is no.
Right.
But then I want to give credit to all my, you know, inspirers. And so, well, sometimes I translate them direct.
Yes.
With footnotes, and if I need to alter things or trim it down, I'll let them know. I'll do that with their blessings.
Wonderful.
And then, on returning to Hong Kong, that is 30-something years ago, I suddenly became a one-man pressure group. You know,
This is in 1984 when you came back,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And I was the only one who speak loudly about all kinds of green issues. You know, organic farming, green commuting, green architecture, homeschooling, campaign against vaccination, all kinds of feminism.
Yes.
And concern for the South.
So when you came back to Hong Kong in 1984, you felt an urge and a need to be vocal?
Very much so.
To speak up.
Yes.
So you were getting media attention, radio, television?
Very much so, yes. And
They must have found you very odd at the time.
At one time, I was doing full-time lecturing in the university for my livelihood, and I was writing 10 columns regularly every day and every week for 10 different places.
Wow.
And I think I've maybe that's a world record. I wrote at the same concurrently for three magazines representing 3 religions. One of us a Protestant church organ. One is the Catholic Church organ here, and another one is the Buddhist in Taiwan, and another one more, a Buddhist magazine here. So 4 different publications, 3 religions.
You should look into that and see if that is a record. That's amazing.
And well, I'm glad that they can tolerate me, you know.
Yes.
I tested them to the limits.
Absolutely. Wonderful. But because you were an unusual voice, you must have got a lot of media attention. They must have loved you, right? They must have wanted to spread what you were saying to their readers.
I would say that I'm a 50% media person. I worked as an editor, a translator, a program host in TV stations, radio stations.
Yes.
And I almost worked as in a PR firm, and I knew everything inside out about the media. So I know how to play around with the TV stations, and I have good connections with them, and that helps a lot.
Yes. And you still do?
Well, yes, 40 years on.
That's amazing, Simon, to hear your story. And you know, I came to Hong Kong in '92, so this is considered by many as well as the very early days. But you were already talking and writing and publishing books in the mid '80s, and then you came to found GreenPower. Was that the first organization you founded, and what were the challenges around that back in 1988?
Well, back in the mid 1980s, there were already two green groups in Hong Kong. One is the Conservancy Association, that was the first one, and then Friends of the Earth Hong Kong was established.
Yes.
But I don't think they are doing the most effective way to turn the place green. They were focusing on the environment. But there's no harm focusing on the environment, except that people will think that, well, it's about cleaning up the water and the air and taking care of the garbage.
Which back then was important, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But my vision was we should have green architecture, green commuting, and green medicine, green education, green arts, and green media.
Prince Charles, of course, in the UK was advocating that, wasn't he? Yeah.
So everything is our concern. Now, if you were an environmentalist, they will say, well, we are doing education. It's not your cup of tea. But I think we will turn everything green.
Everything's interconnected.
Yes. And then people came to me and said, why don't you run for an office in the government or start a green party? My answer is, I'm not a political animal. Even I know that even if you become the president of the United States or of China, there's nothing much you can do.
As we've seen, right?
Well, one good example is Al Gore. Well, I actually met him before he ran for the vice presidency.
Yes.
And I knew that, even with people like him up there, or another one is, I'm sorry to say, my good friend Christina Low.
Yes.
Well, there's not much she can do in the government, you see. And I think our mission should be make every party a green party. If the Conservatives come to power, they are a green party. If the Labours come to power, and there's another, they should be out-greening each other.
Absolutely. As the famous Green Party politician in Germany used to say, we are not to the left,
no.
We are not to the right,
we're in front.
We are ahead. Of course, I mean, because I used to encounter the same thing is, you're an environmentalist. You just focus on the environment.
Exactly.
But wait a minute, everything is the environment. The economy, the government, the education system, all the institutions, everything is the environment.
But then if you are in front, you're in trouble. People don't understand you.
You stick your neck out.
But what I realized is, well, there's one saying which is very true, and that is, first, they ignore you. Then they argue with you, and then they take you for granted. I remember 34 years ago when I was riding my bike to the office in the university, everybody thought the Chinese university is crazy, hiring someone to lecture and who promote using less plastic bags. and riding a bike to work, you know. But then now, 30 years on, is everywhere.
Yeah, of course.
And then it's like, banning smoking. And well, one of my favorite campaigning was against baby formula milk. And you remember
Yes.
that episode in Peninsula Hotel? No, I remember it must be 1994. One woman tried to breastfeed her baby in the hall cafe, Peninsula Hotel, and she was politely asked to do it in a bathroom. And she called the manager and said, well, you don't want to have your meal in your bathroom. I won't want my baby in the bathroom. And so 1 week later, we organized a coup. I have my camera ready. I sat there at 9 o'clock. And then the mothers arrived, they sat around. At exactly 10 o'clock, everybody, 15 of them started breastfeeding the baby, bearing their breasts in front of everyone. So we have the cameras ready.
No video then?
Well, there's no live Facebook Live. And it was in the headlines the following day in the Morning Post.
Did the manager come out?
Well, yes.
And then he went,
You can imagine.
help! He ran away.
Peninsula Hotel.
Yes.
And then they started having those special rooms for mothers. And well, we used to do things like that. We used to stood before the one McDonald's branch protesting what? They have in their chips, the French fries, they have animal products. The grease comes from the cow's what do we call this? The spinal cord.
Right.
And then we saw Chinese nuns chewing and without being warned.
Yeah.
And so we started some protesting.
I think it's time to start doing that again. You know, with the amount of plastic that's being used. I was in a famous coffee shop the other day, actually waiting to come to your restaurant, to Greenwoods. I was doing some work, the biggest chain in Hong Kong, right? And I was watching people getting their coffee cups with their plastic lids, sitting down on the table, taking off the plastic lid and drinking the coffee. Now that plastic lid's going to be around for 500 years, it's going nowhere. And the girls next to me, they were eating muffin, and one of them was eating a croissant with a plastic knife and a plastic fork. And everyone was doing this inside the coffee shop.
This is Hong Kong.
And my blood pressure was going up, and I was feeling sad, I was feeling hurt, I was feeling depressed almost. Why are they using so much plastic? It's not even takeaway. They're eating inside the restaurant. And then they don't have any, this is Starbucks, and they don't have any recycling bins. Crazy. So why don't we contact the management of Starbucks and say, listen, we will give you 3 months to start recycling, to move away from plastic. If you don't, we will start a campaign. Very simple. We give them 3 months. If Mana Cafe can do it, if Mana can compost and recycle and be zero food waste and zero waste, of course Starbucks can do it. And Simon, you know what? I think it's time to start doing this peaceful, insightful way of putting pressure on these big corporates to stop pumping out plastic. Because I love your idea of you going to McDonald's and demonstrating for them to stop, putting animal products into their chips. And I think it's time we did that now, because now we have social media.
Things can be very easy.
We can reach thousands of people very quickly, and we have, as you know, the young generation in Hong Kong now are quite aware. A lot of our customers are young Hong Kong university students or even secondary students. coming to us saying we are vegan and we are proud. Young teenagers. Mostly because of the environment, mostly because of the eco footprint of meat, fish and dairy. So there's definitely a big awakening amongst the youth in Hong Kong.
That's what we are very happy to see. Well, you mentioned you came to Hong Kong in '92.
Yes.
That was my turning point somewhat. In 1994, I started the Vegetarian Society in Hong Kong. You know, because I thought at that time that you try very hard to tell people to protect the environment, and they just look at you and turn away. You know, you talk about saving the polar bear, and they won't care. No. But if you start talking about eating, you know, they all come.
They do care.
So I think turning people's mind green starts with turning their diet. And also, when you turn vegetarian, when you're eating greener, you become a different person. It's a different lifestyle, a different way of looking at life.
Yes.
And your future. Okay, and then I started a vegetarian restaurant. In those days, you know, people just thought that you are crazy. You know, you are anti-scientific, you are superstitious, and you don't know what you're talking about. How can you survive without meat? You know, where do you get
your
protein
from? And the other one is
and
calcium.
B12.
Yeah, B12. And calcium. What? You don't drink milk? How do you get calcium?
Okay, but then a few years on, people came to me and said, well, giving up meat is good, but there is another way, a better way, a more ultimate way to eat naturally, and that is living food, raw. Well, I was suspicious, but then there was the book Fit for Life. Fit for Life. That book
that inspired me
changed many people's
about
mindset.
Food combining.
Yes, and I read that book, and I was quite impressed. So I started turning raw gradually, and I discovered that it is that makes sense. I came across totally raw people in Spain, in America, and in Africa, and they are totally different species of animals. They look vibrant, they have their mission, they are very nice, affectionate,
creative,
yes, and they look much younger than their age. Then I thought there must be something in that. So I started turning raw, and eventually in 2011, I turned totally raw. I suddenly became a different person. And what happened was, and then 12 years ago, I gave myself a luxurious gift, and that is I resigned from the university.
That was the Baptist Jew at the time,
yes,
right? Yeah.
And I started full-time, you know, doing campaigning and educating. Well, never in my wildest dreams would I imagine one day I become a boss. I start my own business, become an entrepreneur, and making money, which I need for, you know, for survival with my shops. And I never imagined one day I become a healer. I would teach Qigong, Tai Chi, or I would, you know, do food to serve people. You know, well, that's life. It's a different runway, and I learned along the way. And I suppose you did.
Yes. You make it up as you go along, right?
And you teach what you needed to learn most.
Yes.
When the pupil is ready, the master turns up.
Yes.
And
when the master's ready, the students turn up.
Well, yes. So my students are turning up, and I'm glad to see that. And suddenly, I realized again that our mission should be in China. What happened was, when you tell people to, you know, turn vegetarian, eat raw in Hong Kong, their response is quite slow. But when you do exactly the same thing in Putonghua, in that part of the border, all over China, their reaction is phenomenal.
Right.
Now, can you imagine after one evening's lecture or demonstration, there are dozens of people in the audience will turn raw, and then 3 months afterwards,
One lecture.
One
You
evening,
must have inspired them.
and then after 3 months you see them again. They became different persons, and their ailments gone, and their community, their family turned raw, and that's quite rewarding, isn't it?
And this is in different parts of China?
Yes.
Across China?
Now I have been all over China in the past 2 years,
Yes.
and so actually my energies are more and more channeling north.
That's very impressive, and I completely agree with you. China is such a vast country,
Yeah.
and it's a country that's been damaged and hurt in the past, right? So a message of changing our diets, changing our lifestyles from within, peacefully, is, I believe, like you do, the way forwards. And food has such a big impact. The old adage, we are what we eat, right? It's very true. So as we eat, it changes our nature, because after all, we are made from food, right?
I think that is also meaningful for the Hong Kong community at this point in history, because I suppose we all know that people are very pessimistic and down these days. There's no outlets, they can't see anything we can do. We are kind of controlled by Beijing. But I just think the opposite way. I told my students 30 years back that we should be turning China green, and we should be the hope of a future China, because we know about the world outside. It's our mission to tell them, what's happening out there. And now I think people in Hong Kong like me can contribute tremendously to the entire Chinese community, starting by changing their diets, telling them, there's a much better and more healthy way to eat for the planet, for your own good. And you know what? They listen. They know how terrible their diet is. They know that. And even the vegetarian restaurant owners know that they are not offering the most nutritious or healthy food in the world. And so they like to come to Hong Kong and see us in operation.
Yes.
And many of our dishes, they just take it back. And so our students are now doing what we do all over China. And some of their dishes are more attractive than ours too. One day I hope you go to parts of China and try the raw cakes, for example, in a Chinese version. Chinese
but with
noodles.
interesting names like Simon Chau's stew, Dr. Simon's raw pudding. They're naming all these dishes after you, I hope.
Well, yes, I think they're using my brand names in
Yes.
their own way, and that helps.
Yes.
And people kept asking me, why don't you open 200 cafes all over
Yes.
China? Well, that is exactly possible, but that's not what we want to do.
No.
I want my students to do their own thing in their own way, after our inspiration.
Yes. Yes.
We can transfer the technology. It's easy to learn how to do noodles,
Yes.
from our shop, or cakes.
Yes.
But then, if you come to our shop, you see, it's a different culture. People came to our shop, start eating, and they cry because the energy. Our kitchen is a meditative kitchen. Every morning, not 9:30, they start, sitting together or standing in a circle and start meditating.
Beautiful. Every morning.
Every morning for something like 20 minutes.
That's
and
amazing.
Then people should not speak unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yes.
And so it's a quiet kitchen, and we do everything in a meditative mood. And that is why the energy of the food is different. We thank the food.
Into the food.
Into the food. And it's a healing power there.
Amazing. That is so inspirational, Simon.
And last year, there was another turning point for me. 6 years ago, I kept telling people that, doing a business is not my cup of tea. I don't care about earning money. I don't know how to make money, and let me try. That kind of attitude. That is because for my entire life so far, money is never a concern. My salary from a university is good enough to feed the family comfortably. So I thought, when I got my doctorate, I thought that, I don't need to deal with money for the rest of my life. And that was correct until I opened my shop. And there's a cash flow concern every day. And then I realized it is my mission to start a new culture in entrepreneurship. You can make money and be happy. You can be spiritual and you can be abundant. And that's what I'm training people now.
Through Greenwoods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the fact that you have opened an entity which is a business, you have to pay rent, you have to pay salaries. Has that changed the game for you? Because that puts on pressure when your overheads become very heavy, and sometimes sales aren't so good, or things happen as they do. That changes the game somewhat, doesn't it?
Very much so. Well, you can feel very nervous about this, especially when you don't have a capital. I use my savings to start. That's that. But I think my trick is to surrender. I started by telling myself that if it is the universe who wants me to go on, the universe will help. I like that saying that the entire universe conspires to realize your dream. If you have a dream, and if you how to ask, you get everything you want. And miracles came all the time. And because if one day my shop is closed because I don't have enough cash, and that means the universe wants me to do something else. So I have no pressure.
So you let go. One of my favorite sayings is, do your best and trust the universe to do the rest. But it's that element of trust, Simon, that people struggle with. Because in order to let go, to surrender,
and let God,
let go to let God come, then you have to trust. And a lot of people say, trust, what do you mean? Trust in what? Trust in myself, trust in God, trust in the universe. What is this trust? And I learned how to trust, to surrender, to let go many years ago. And that gave me a lot more courage, a lot more energy, a lot more passion, a lot more enthusiasm. Because, I've been dealing with Hong Kong business people, landlords for 24 years. And they can be, very aggressive, like business people all over the world. So you're not meeting on the same paradigm. It's a different consciousness. they think you're stupid and naive because you don't care about money. So they take advantage of you. But coming back to trust, how did you find your trust?
It's very simple. Miracles. You know, when you see miracles every day, you realize that everything happens for a good reason. You are where you should be. You are where you should be. And then I know that I just, do it. I don't just do it. I let the universe do it. So I don't have to do it. And so it's in Christian terms, it's my father's business, not my business. So I'm just taking care of the everyday chore.
Yes. And when did you first start to discover this trust or this worldview, this way of looking at the world? You think this started to come to you in the 70s, or did it first start to come to you in the early 80s when you were in England? Or?
No, just recently, with a lot of pain.
Right.
Sometimes you have to learn it the hard way. You started worrying and you don't know what you was supposed to do. But then I was teaching people to do it at the same time. So I'm taking the lesson myself.
Yes.
And then gradually I read books, I attend courses, pay to have sessions by masters, and I learned all the way, step by step.
If you can recommend one book to someone who's an absolute beginner, which book would you recommend?
That's a good question.
Only one book. Someone who's completely new to all of this.
My own.
Which
in
one?
Chinese. Oh yes. Which one?
Which one? One book. I know that's a very cruel question.
In Chinese, it's 綠色心靈力量 Green Mind Power.
Mind power.
Mind Power.
My power.
Mind.
Oh, mind. Yeah.
Power. I think everything is our projection. Everything happens because we started something in there. You know about the zero limits.
Yes.
Yes. I was thinking along that line. Yes. Things happen because you have some undesirable things inside. People are fighting. People are doing all kinds of bad things. It all is all your own responsibility. It's yours, it's mine. But then, we are one. It's all our collective consciousness. So you don't need to change anything outside. You just try to look inward and changing this.
It's a bit like the sound now. This drumming and this going on. This doesn't happen every day.
No.
This is unusual. So this has become part of our conversation now. We have a background music happening, which is Chinese culture, right? I hope it's not too loud that they can't hear us. How's your juice?
Well, wonderful. Yes.
That's what we call an earth juice. It's a red, gold, and green. So beetroot, carrot, and celery.
Oh, wow.
But you might need to shake it a little bit.
It's my favorite.
And here we have some jasmines from your table, right? Such a beautiful smell. It's a lovely smell. And tell me, what do we have here in front of us? We have a little leaflet.
It's in Chinese characters. It's living food.
Living food.
Living food for a life, for a new life. Is a little pamphlet to explain what's happening when you eat raw.
Right.
But personally, I prefer, to be precise, the term living food to raw food.
Right.
Because raw is not necessarily living.
Right.
And vice versa. Now, what I mean is, if you have, say, mung beans, okay, it is raw, but it's alive. But if you put it there, sit there for 5 years, it's dead. It's still raw, but there's no life.
Right.
You see, like dried shrimps, they are raw, but they are not living. We need the living elements there, which is enzymes, you
Yes.
see.
Yes.
And on the other hand, some of our food is cooked, but it is still living because germs are working there. Like, for example, our kefir or soy sauce.
Yes.
Some soy sauce remain living. You know, you put it sitting there and things happen.
Yes. Bacteria and
Bacteria, yeah.
enzymes and kombucha as well,
Kombucha,
right?
yes, and miso.
Miso.
Miso is not raw, but it's living. So
Kimchi as well, right?
exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would prefer a living food environment and a living food style. But you know, people now get used to say raw.
So you should be calling your future restaurants Living Foods,
Exactly.
right? Living Foods, and you know, there it is. Start spreading a chain in China, but you probably don't want to get involved with business, right, at this stage?
No, well, yes and no. I don't know.
Yes.
Again, it's the universe deciding it. People are coming to us every week and say,
Of
let's
course,
offer something.
demand is growing
yeah.
exponentially.
Yes.
What about your children? Are they interested in any of this?
Now, I think we shouldn't be changing people. We just provide an environment. What happened to my kids? I have a son, I have a daughter, and at our home, there's no meat, no milk, no egg. But if they go out to the McDonald's, if there are barbecues for or birthday parties with their friends, it's okay for us. I never lectured, and in 30 odd years, there's not a single sentence from me saying how bad meat is. But then they see my example. The important thing is they see that their parents are surviving well without meat. And on her 14th birthday, suddenly our daughter said, well, I'll be raw for the rest of my life. I mean living, vegetarian. I'll turn vegetarian
Right.
for the rest of my life. Okay, and so we said, why not? And then my son was almost vegetarian until he got married. And well, he was married to a vet, and they're not, they're quite healthy in terms of diet. It's okay for me, you know. They're not my pets.
No.
They can decide for themselves.
Of course.
But then when I turned vegetarian, people around me gradually, you know, did the same thing. Like my wife, or parents-in-law.
And is your daughter still vegetarian?
Yes. Vegan.
Vegan,
Yes.
wonderful. Just reminded me of something. You're familiar with this book, right? The
Sure.
Prophets?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you translated this into Chinese?
I'm sure. Yes. There's more than one translation.
Yes. You know the bit where he speaks about children? You just reminded me of that. And the woman who held the baby against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you." So these are the words of wisdom from Khalil Gibran. You just reminded me of that.
Well, speaking about parenthood, I know as a parent that, kids never listen to their parents. They only copy them.
I like that. I like that. But my point was, your son or your daughter, are they not interested in perhaps taking Living Foods and expanding it as a business in China?
Well, no.
No.
Well, frankly, I would like a family team, like what happens in The Sound of Music. The entire family doing shows everywhere with my band and my kitchen and whatnot. But then I respect them. And if you ask my daughter, the last thing she wants you to know is Simon's daughter. She would like to stand up as an individual, be herself, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, of course.
And they are now very green in their own way. For one thing, my son will be the first teacher in a school promoting forest education.
Here in Hong Kong?
Here in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
Is one international school where he teaches, and the school sent him to England to do a course, and I think he's now the first trained forest educator in Hong Kong. Well,
Oh, how wonderful.
you know what happened was 2 months ago, one Sunday, I suddenly realized that there were 2 reports, one on him and one on me, on the same day in the Morning Post.
Oh, wonderful.
On me about urban farming, and on him about forest schools.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
I subscribed to the Morning Post. I opened it, and I saw my coverage. And then my son told me, well, he was at the back.
Lovely. You've kept a copy.
Yes.
You've kept a copy.
And I'm proud of this.
Forestry. So your son has been into protecting trees, planting trees, raising awareness about trees.
No, it's about taking kids to the forest and be educated.
Right.
Well, let nature speaks.
Yes. Have you been to the Lama forest at all in all these years? The Lama forest in North Lama?
Not exactly going through it.
Right.
Passing by.
Mention that to your son, because this is the forest we planted. We started planting it in 1997. And now we have upwards of 30, 40,000 trees growing wild. So it would be very interesting if your son could come to the Lama forest and have a look, or bring his students, or maybe give us some advice.
Very good.
Because back then the government was urging us to plant exotic species. Like back then, acacias and casuarinas,
How come?
eucalyptus.
Oh, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they told us. That's what they did, because these were hardy, sturdy, pioneering species. But then 10 years after, we realized
they know better.
We should only plant native, indigenous trees.
Of course.
And that's what we started doing with the help of the Kaduri farm, with advice from the Kaduri farm. And so the last 10 tree plantings were only local, either Hong Kong or South China trees. And they do okay. They once the ground is set. But yeah, the forest is up there, and now it's self-seeding through wind and bird droppings and rodents. It's mission accomplished. There's no need to plant any more trees in North Lama.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's done, and of course everybody wants to plant trees now for educational purposes, schools, corporates, businesses. But I don't have so much time these days because that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of red tape, a lot of work, a lot of writing, getting permission from the government. And then some villagers object because they object, and then you have to reapply, and it's not easy. But anyway, all is good. That's wonderful, Simon.
And it's good to know that the younger generation is taking up the baton, and
Yes.
they're doing their things in their own way.
Yes.
Very much more effective than
Yes.
us,
Yeah, absolutely. So are you optimistic about the future of Hong Kong and the younger generation?
Sure, pessimism is not an option.
I like that. I like that. I like that very much. Pessimism is not an option. Agreed. 100%.
I think our bodies are made to run for 150 years. So I have another 70 years ahead.
You plan to live to over 100?
Technically, we should survive 150, according to biology.
Yes.
But then it's not easy because of the pollution,
No,
of this kind of lifestyle.
A background to growing up, eating all sorts of food.
But then, if that's the plan, well, we'll do it.
So
Let's
be
do it.
it. So Simon, just going back, 30 years, going back into the midst of this movement, there's a story about you campaigning to raise awareness about MSG. Please share that story with us.
Oh yes, and before that, I returned to Hong Kong with my doctorate in '84, and the first thing I heard about the Green campaign in Hong Kong was the anti-Daya Bay movement. What happened was...
So Daya Bay is a nuclear plant,
yes,
right?
at our back door.
Yes.
We obviously, in those days, we didn't want it. And so it was led by an Anglican minister, Reverend Feng Chi Wood. We call him Wood, okay? Wood, what happened was he started collecting people's signature. At that time, there were 4 million people living in Hong Kong. We managed to collect 1 million signature, which is a very high proportion.
Wow. Wow.
We collected 1 million signature, and we took it to Beijing. And you know what happened? They say, just because you people won't want it, we'll do it. Otherwise, they will think they will lose their authority.
Lose face.
Lose face.
This is 1985.
Yes, and then now we have the Daya Bay there, the plant. And 2 years later, it's around 86 or 87, there was a worldwide anti-MSG movement. And I was with the Conservancy Association, so the association took it up.
Oh, you were a member of the Conservancy
Yes,
Association?
I was in the committee. Well, at that time, the entire association have well, we've only got less than 10 active members. It was a very low ebb, okay?
Yes.
And one of the things we did was to turn away from caring for the environment. Well, I thought it was my idea. Let's put down our care for the noise and the water. Why don't we care about our food? And so we targeted MSG. Well, with our the few of us started telling everybody, I make good use of my media connection, and we were on radio shows, TV shows, and interviews almost every day for a fortnight. Everybody in Hong Kong was talking about MSG. And then people realized that after all, MSG is not a good thing. You know what happened in those days? If you're in Taiwan, you go to a wedding party, your gift should be 1 kilogram of MSG.
Really?
That is, a wedding party, a standardized gift. And in Beijing, according to the official stand, MSG is good for your brain. It's very positive. So when we tell people that MSG is, after all, anti-health, people were shocked. They took it for granted. And oh yes, I remember in those days when you go to a restaurant in China, a bowl of soup is 50 cents. And a bowl of soup with MSG is double.
Wow.
$1. And they give you MSG, and you add as much as you like for the extra
flavor,
for extra 50 cents.
Yeah.
So we were changing people's mindset, and after that, the consumption of MSG dropped drastically. So much so that the large companies are losing money, and I got a call Well, it's the first time I relate this story in public. And after 30 years, I got a call from the #1 manufacturer. You know, MSG started in Japan exactly 100 years ago. Okay, they are the #1 brand, and they asked me to, you know, they want to see me in a hotel. They said the vice president is coming all the way from Tokyo to meet you as a top green campaigner. And I said, okay, let's sit down and see what happens. And so I went to that hotel. In the lounge, we sat down, got introduced, exchanged name cards, and they say, why don't we go up to the suite up there in the 13th floor?
Which hotel is this?
Can I name it?
Yeah, of course.
Park Lane.
Park Lane, okay.
13th floor. So we went to a luxurious suite overlooking the park, and we sat down, you know, coffee, and the vice president from Tokyo started talking, well, through an interpreter. Okay, and you know what happened was he said, well, we are so grateful, Dr. Chau, that you care to show concern about our products. And we know that you know a lot about MSG. But there must be something, other things which we can supply for you to make your view more holistic. And he started handing out large piles of their propaganda. And he said, why don't you come to our office? Our headquarters in Tokyo will provide you with first-class flight and 5-star hotel, you know, and then come here for something like 1 week, and we'll entertain you. We'll show you around, and you see the real MSG production and why it's good for people. And I said, well, I'm not sure if I can, you know, I can get away from my teaching load. And then he said, he took up, you know what, he, from his bag, there's an envelope, sealed envelope, with nothing on it. And he said, well, as a token of thanks, you might like to take this with you. What will you do? If you
depends how thick it was.
Well, that's an envelope.
Right.
You don't know what's inside.
No.
So what do you say?
I would accept it. I would say thank you, yes, because I don't know what's inside. It's a gift.
You would accept it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I was writing for the most prestigious column, a newspaper in Hong Kong every day. I have been writing about MSG for over 1 month. And he was giving me large piles of information.
So you knew what was in the envelope, right?
I don't.
No.
I don't. I said, thank you. Well, I'm not supposed to accept gifts. I gave it back.
Right.
Actually, after that, 10, 20 years later, I was asking ICAC people, you know, the anti-corruption branch in the government, am I breaking the law by accepting, if it's a check or cash? You know what they said? I was asking right in front of my class at the university. It's about professional ethics. Every year we invite the ICAC educators to give a talk. So I asked that question point blank. And the answer was officially that if I were a full-time employee of the newspaper, I should ask permission from my head first. Anything about $500 should be reported and given back to the management. But since I'm a freelancer, I can do whatever I like.
Yes. That's why I said I would accept it, but then you open it and, you know, it depends what you find inside, right? If they're giving you a wad of cash, they're bribing you, then I would give it back, right? But you refuse to take it, and you still don't know what was in there.
No.
Maybe there was $1 million. That's an amazing story. And this is 1987. And who was helping you with this MSG campaign?
Oh, actually, my partner was Trini.
Trini Leung.
Yes, Trini Leung. Well, both of us were, you know, new in the game, and
you were youngsters back then.
Very energetic, and well, I think both of us were charismatic, you know, before the cameras, and we make a good pair.
She was also one of the founders of the Conservancy Association?
Very much so, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Well, I still miss her.
Yes. Do you meet her? Do you still see her these days? Do you spend time together?
Not much, really.
She's still on Llama Island, right?
Yes, yes. So I heard.
Maybe I should invite her to be my guest on the show.
Or maybe we have some food here.
Yes. Together. Or maybe we can invite Trini to have breakfast with me next time.
Good. Yes.
So we can have a woman on the show.
It's time.
It's about time. It's about time. Yes. There's a few women actually I would love to invite, and some may or might not be able to make it. But Simon, that's a wonderful story with the MSG, you know, and well done for changing people's mindsets. And you said 1 in every 4 Hong Kong people managed to change back then. Wow, that's amazing. Well done. It's been a pleasure having you for breakfast. Thank you so much for coming.